What inspires you? Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda, and this word inspiration has been coming up for me so much lately, and so I wanted to talk to you about that, but especially for those of you who may be thinking about starting a business or a practice or revamping your business or practice, and just feeling this urge or desire to show up in your life, to show up in the world in a new way. You know, we are in this new energy. The spring equinox is right around the corner. So let's talk about how we can really make the most of this. Let's get into the show. Okay, let's talk about this business blooming. The reason I wanted to share this with all of you is because what I've noticed is a lot of people around me really stepping into their inspirations, but I also receive emails all the time from people asking, what should they do to start to support their business or their practice or, expanding and all of these things. And while, I did have my mentoring programs, the 3-month and the 6-month, the registration for those did close in the end of February. So I thought I would just share a little bit of information to support you all today in a more generalized way because, this is an exciting time. I always get really excited around spring, and it's not so much because of the weather change. I mean, come on, I live in San Diego, our weather is pretty consistent throughout the year, but it's just the idea and the energy of renewal and, things coming back to full bloom. And I just want to point out, it doesn't matter where you live in the world. I know some of you are going through different seasonal changes, but it really just comes down to the transitions that we go through in life and this transitional energy and how much inspiration can be wrapped up in these changes. But the most important part of it all really is what we do with this transitional energy, because a lot of times we can resist it. We're very comfortable in our life, comfortable in our routine, comfortable in our way of being until we're not. And then here comes some type of transitional energy, whether it's seasonal or just some unexpected change in life, or maybe some unexpected inspiration. But something happens where we all go through these periods of okay, something is moving, something's stirring, but what we do with it is what matters. So I'm going to invite you now, if you are in that space of feeling inspired to do something differently, if you are inspired to start to build your business, your practice, or even revamp the one that you have, if you are in a space of just wanting to show up and share yourself with the world in a new way, I want you to give yourself permission to step out of the resistance now. Just give yourself permission to step out of resistance. Take a nice deep inhale, and as you exhale, release. Let your shoulders fall. Let the resistance fall. And let's talk about how we can make the best use of this transitional energy. Okay? So, one of the first things I want to point out, because I do like to share this information with you all, is that we do have a new moon in Pisces coming up on March the 17th. And then we also have the spring equinox happening on March 20th. And again, that's the energy of renewal. But for more information and detail about the energy of the month, including the second full moon of this month, be sure to go to my website, yuchi.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you can access all of that information month to month throughout the entire year. So, since we are in this energy of renewal, or again, transitional energy period, I really have been paying attention to what has been coming up for me as well as those around me, whether my friends, my clients, everyone. And I have to tell you, oftentimes it's just really inspiring to watch other people step into their own magic more deeply, right? Because we are all magical. Like I tell you all the time, the magic is you. It's just a matter of how we want to use our magic, how we want to use these gifts of life that we have, what we want to do with this life that we have, what we want to do with the time that we have while we're here. And, I have to say that question alone recently really kind of is what I would say was like the catalyst for this burst of inspiration for me. I had some events happen where we have a lot of homeless here in San Diego. And I live right in the city, like in the city proper. Like I don't live in the suburbs. And there are more and more homeless here. Our housing here is very expensive. And anyway, I had an interaction with someone that really made me question, like, how do I want to make use of my life? Like, how else do I want to be of support? How else can I be of service in a way that feels right and true to me? So that was really like the catalyst of this for me, in addition to just the energy of spring itself. But then I started to back up and pay attention, and I took more note of the people who were reaching out, asking about their business and feeling this burst of inspiration, wanting to know what to do. And then I started looking at the people in my life. So I want to tell you about a couple of those people really quickly, and I would recommend taking note of them because they are, light workers or energy workers or whatever. They are just like you and I, people who are inspired to share, to help uplift, and to help us all learn and grow through self-connection. And one of these people happens to be my astrology teacher. Her name is Adrienne Abeda, and she just recently decided to expand her business more online, to have more of an online presence. So she just created a YouTube channel where she will be sharing insights about tarot and about astrology. So if you have an interest in either one of those topics, I would recommend going to her YouTube channel and subscribing so that you can get those insights from her. And her name, again, is Adrienne Abeda. That's A-B as in boy, E-Y-T as in Tom, A. And she's just amazing. Now, another person who I have been inspired by more recently is someone who recently came on the podcast. Her name is Tiffany, and we had so much fun sharing with you when she came on Reiki Radio, but she also has stepped into her own inspiration and started a podcast of her own, and it's called Mind Your Chakras. So if you go to the iTunes app, the iTunes podcast app, you can search for Mind Your Chakras, or you can go to her website, mindyourchakras.com, and access her podcast there. And I'm excited to share both of these women with you because I love seeing that there are more of us sharing and extending the reach to be support of each other. So I hope that you will take some time to show some love to them as well. Because as I always say, we learn and grow and exchange. But what I will also say is it does take a lot of courage to put yourself out there. I mean, I've told you all the story before. Doing the podcast alone, I had to get over my own stuff, my own fear, my own insecurities, just to show up and tune into my reason. What was my why? And the why was I wanted to share with more people to extend my reach and get this information that had helped me so much on my path out to other people. So I got over my stuff, I put myself out there, and here we are. But again, I know how challenging that can be sometimes and how scary it can be. So I'm very excited when I see more and more of us, taking that leap into sharing, because the collective matters to us. Now that comes back to you. What have you been inspired by lately? And are you someone who has been thinking about starting a business, revamping your business, or just sharing your voice, your light in the world in a new way? And it doesn't have to be necessarily a business per se, but maybe there's just some way you want to show up differently or to share differently. And, this is a beautiful energy and time for that. So if nothing else, I hope that this podcast today will inspire you to step more deeply into your own magic and stop putting off or ignoring whatever it is that you have been thinking about doing, because you are the only one who can actually get that ball rolling. Okay, so, one of the things I will say that really kind of inspired me recently too, that may be helpful for you, is sometimes we just have to change our pattern. We often get stuck in our routine. And even though we have ideas and we're like, oh, I have something I want to do, we oftentimes don't take the action because we're so caught in our own patterns and routines and think we don't have the time, or we're simply overwhelmed because we just don't know what to do first. So something that can help you with that is just taking any kind of action. And here's the secret. It doesn't even have to be related to what it is you want to create. Sometimes it's just as simple as creating a break in our routine. So here's an example. I was watching something on TV the other day, and there was an ice skater on because of the Winter Olympics. And I remembered that I used to love to ice skate. I was took ice skating lessons, did recitals, all of that. But I haven't been on ice skates in at least 30 years. So I thought, wow, that would be a lot of fun to try to ice skate again. I wonder if I can go backwards. I wonder if I can do this or that. And so just the idea of reconnecting to something that I used to enjoy really got me excited. And then I looked up, step one, I did some research to find out where and when I could ice skate and all of these things. Now I am inspired to create a break in my pattern, to create a break in my routine, to do something different, but not just that, to do something I actually enjoy. Now, the benefit of this is by allowing myself to be in motion, doing something out of my routine and that I enjoy, also on some level shows me that I have time to also pour energy into other things that I may like to do or feel inspired to do or create or experience. Just by doing that one thing that's out of my daily ordinary, so to speak. Okay, so I'm really excited about going ice skating. I will keep you all posted about that. But think of something that you used to enjoy, something maybe you haven't done in a while, and commit to going out and doing it, even if it's just for a small period of time. It's kind of like a gift to your inner child, your inner muse, by creating that space to allow yourself to do something that you actually enjoy, making the time to do it. Now, that really supports opening those creative channels and helping us to feel inspired and like that energy of joy. So that's really, the main point of this. But another thing, before we get into the business side of things, is really taking time to be still and be quiet and pay attention to your inspiration. Really pay attention to those insights, those ideas that seem to come out of nowhere that you think for a minute like, oh, that's a good idea. Or, yeah, that seems interesting. And before you talk yourself out of it, before you give yourself an excuse, and before you dismiss it like, oh, I'll think about it later, pause and really consider it. Write it down. Record it on your phone, a voice memo. But don't dismiss it as something that we put in that pile of like, I'll get back to that later, maybe if, when, and so on. You know, I often tell people the only difference between us and people who are living out what we would like to do is that they actually took a first step. They actually made the time to try. And they paid attention and they listened to that inner voice, that inner inspiration. Now it's funny, you know, one of the things, of course, I will tell you is that one way you can really tune into your inspiration, your creative channels, is to meditate. And it's because you're allowing yourself that space to just sit and be with you outside of the distractions of like television, cell phone, you know, kids, family, whatever. You're just taking space to sit with you. So you're allowing yourself to acknowledge you and whatever may come through. And you don't have to put pressure on yourself around that. Like, don't go like, okay, I need inspiration. Echoing that in your mind is going to block yourself from hearing whatever the inspiration may be. So just sit and observe whatever may come up. And you know, the first time it may not be something creative, but it doesn't mean that the second or third time that it won't be. But that is a good way to at least take time intentionally to tune into you. But honestly, a lot of people have these bursts of inspiration and creativity in other scenarios. So this might be you. This happens to me. Okay. Do you always tend to have this like mind chatter right when you're trying to go to bed? I mean, of all times, it seems inconvenient. Believe me, I know it happens to me all the time. When I lay down, I want to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden, here come the ideas, the thoughts, the creative, insights. Now, if this is you, one way you can really acknowledge what's coming through is to jot it down. So like I have a notebook that I keep in my bed, because when these inspirations come through, I jot them down. Even if I can't see, it's in the dark, like I scribble, whatever, I figure it out in the morning. But, you can type it in your phone. You can record a voice memo on your phone. But don't say like, oh, I'll remember when I wake up, because what happens? 9 times out of 10, we don't remember. And there goes that burst of inspiration that could have been like one of those golden nuggets for us. Now, a couple other places it happens for me is in the shower. And I think it happens for a lot of people there because, again, it's like a moment of solitude. The water flowing down on us is very meditative within itself. And we're not distracted by anything else. So, again, we're just allowing ourselves to tune into us. And here come the insights. Here come the inspiration without even effort. We're just allowing it to flow through. Again, when you get out of the shower, jot it down right away. And finally, one for me is in the car. Same, you can record voice memos. I know a lot of people get it when they're working out. If that happens for you, maybe take a little pocket notebook with you to the gym and or to yoga class and put it next to your mat. But give yourself that opportunity to acknowledge your inspirations and insights, because you never know what they will lead to. Now, with that said, be patient. We live in a culture where we are used to things being immediate and we want immediate results, right? And when you are working on a project or trying a new venture or starting a business or revamping, believe me, it's going to take some patience. Now, some things we create and it is an immediate result. No problem. But that isn't always the case. But I want to remind you right now, don't give up before you actually see the fruits of your labor, and don't put some deep, tight hold expectation on how long it's supposed to take for you to see a result. Chill out. Okay, when I actually was thinking about sharing this with you, the image that I saw was a tree. And think of your idea, your inspiration, like the seed that you plant under the earth. You bury the seed in the earth, and it has to be nurtured in the soil. So you take action of like watering that seed, nurturing the soil, and even though the seed is underground and you can't see the growth that is taking place, it doesn't mean that nothing is happening. But you have to be patient. Continue to nurture the soil. And in its own time, it is going to make its way up through the layers of earth. And then you will start to see this tree or plant or flower, whatever it is. It'll start to bloom, but in a way that you can see, because now it's made its way to the earth's surface. Now think of this as our ideas and our inspirations. They start in thought. That's the soil. And we take action to support whatever these ideas may be. And we may not see the result of how it is growing initially, but again, it doesn't mean nothing is happening. But if we continue to try, if we remain persistent, if we allow ourselves to continue to nurture our goals, in time we will see the tangible result. Now, it's easier said than done, right? Saying to be patient. And I actually had a really good lesson in this recently, and I'll share it with you. So part of this, and I have been going through a lot of like personal transitional stuff in the background, which is why I haven't been as consistent with the podcasts, but I promise I will be back to a weekly schedule soon. But in these transitions that I'm going through, I've also committed to making more time this year to reconnect with my own growth and learning. And, yes, I share and teach a lot, but I love to learn as well. I'm constantly, student. That doesn't stop. We're always learning and teaching. All of us, really, in every way. So I started taking Buddhism classes the end of last year, and pretty much so far when I go to these classes, we are mainly in meditation from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And yes, of course we have breaks, but primarily we're meditating all day. And I meditate by myself. I've been meditating for years at home, but when I'm at home, I just end my meditation when I'm done. When I'm done, I get out and I stop when I'm ready. Well, in this particular setting, we are all meditating as a group for a certain amount of time. And one of the days, the time seemed longer than usual, and I started to get uncomfortable, irritable, and impatient. And all I wanted to do was open my eyes, stand up, and walk out of the room. I was done meditating, and the more I thought about how much I didn't want to sit anymore, the more uncomfortable I became in my body. And then it struck me, hello, it's mindset. Just like I talk to you all about all the time. It's all about how I was perceiving the experience. So I took a breath and decided that it wasn't a big deal. that sitting there beyond what I wanted to was teaching me patience, and that I actually enjoyed meditation. And I decided that if I would just chill out for a second, I may allow myself to receive more inspiration, and I might even enjoy the remainder of the experience. And as soon as I made up my mind to change my perspective, the discomfort that I was feeling started to dissipate, and I was able to relax back into my practice. Now, this was a huge lesson for me, because in that state of irritation, I was thinking, are they going to teach us anything? Not realizing that, really in that moment, the lesson was huge for me, just in patience, and also remembering the impact of our perspective. So now imagine this out in your real life. The times where you're impatient, irritated, you feel like you should have had more of a result. So you throw in the towel before you really see the beauty of the process. So the next time you are working on something, a project, revamping the business, whatever it is, maybe putting yourself out there on social media, or maybe starting a podcast. It is going to take time to build momentum. It may take time to see the fruits of your labor. Now, for those of you who are considering starting a practice like Reiki practice or whatever it may be, or revamping or expanding your practice, one thing I can tell you from my experience in this is that it really does require patience. And the most important thing is staying heart-centered and really staying kind of tuned into your inspiration, so that you are sharing authentically from your heart, so that you are sharing what really matters to you, because that's going to keep you inspired to keep creating. If you feel like you don't really want to create, you might not be really trying to create what you actually feel passionate about. But when we allow ourselves to really connect in deeply with what we are passionate about, it's like that fire starts to burn, and we want to share. And our want and our desire to create becomes bigger than the fears that we may have had. And if you allow yourself to acknowledge your inspiration enough, it'll also help you to dissipate the criticism that will sneak in. Like sometimes, we doubt ourselves and we criticize ourselves. But back to the patience part, I could tell you, for example, I think I just shared this recently. I hope it wasn't on the podcast, so I'm not being repetitive. But when I first decided that I wanted to share with people, I was really excited to share everything I was learning, because it was so impactful in my life. And I think this was even before I started the podcast. I don't remember which came first, but I decided to try some teleseminars. This was before webinars became big. So I decided to do some teleseminars, and I put them out there. I think I put invitations to them on certain blogs and certain sites, and I don't really remember. I may have done the podcast back then, I'm not sure. But the first couple of teleseminars that I did, no one came. And the very first one, I'll say, no one came. And although I could see that no one was there, I thought, well, this is probably a good opportunity for me to practice speaking on this thing. So I continued with the teleseminar as if people had showed up, because I was going to make the most out of the situation and not throw in the towel, because the way that I saw it, again, at least it was giving me practice for when and if people actually did show up. So I did it. Then I scheduled another teleseminar. Again, no one showed up. And yeah, it stung a little bit. I was a bit disappointed, but I figured, hey, I never know, one day someone may show up, so I'll practice again. Then I did another teleseminar. I think 1 or 2 people showed up. And I did another one, and then more people showed up, and so it went. But the only way even that experience could have grown for me was by remaining persistent and remaining patient and making the most out of what the building process was, even though it wasn't what I wanted it to look like right away. And the truth is, the same as, was the same for the podcast. Again, I wanted to share because I was excited to share with all of you things that were supporting me. I figured if I could help anyone else, I was happy to do it. I didn't know if anyone was going to listen. In fact, I don't even know how long it took before I received an email, like just 1 or 2 emails from people saying that they were listening. And it took quite a while to really build up before I started getting several emails from people listening. But again, it just is because of the consistency. It takes consistency a lot of times to build the foundation for whatever it is we're going to expand into. So remember that. Don't give up before you see the fruit of your labors. Again, there's a lot going on in the soil before we actually see the tangible result. But we have to take action. We have to nurture the soil. Now, one thing I wanted to point out as well, because this is something that so many of us overlook, is the power of collaboration and the power of community. I spoke to you earlier in the year. We're in a universal year 11, which also reduces to the number 2. 2 is all about support, relationship, collaboration, partnership. So it's a great year to consider connecting with community, people who may have similar interest, people who may have answers to support you, joining a mastermind, looking up meetup groups in your area. Anything that will help you expand into your inspiration. You'd be surprised of how inspiring it can be just to be around people that you are able to relate to. And especially in this realm of spirituality, for a lot of people, they don't have many people in their lives that they can talk to about these experiences, or people that they can share with and receive some, response back that their friends or family may, be able to relate to. So when you have community and you're able to be understood, or other people hear you and they're able to share feedback back that may inspire you, it's a beautiful thing. And our inspiration comes in so many forms, but there is nothing like the power of community, or, allowing ourselves to be a part of. So, again, you can, look up meetups in your area. You maybe invite friends over for a mastermind group, or you can even join us in the Seeker Circle, which is on Facebook. It's free. It's a private group. And I started that community for people who listen to the podcast. And, again, it's one of those things like, yes, secretly, there's a part of me that's so excited to see this community grow. I would love to see the Seeker Circle grow in numbers and for people to share even more and more with each other. But I also have to be patient. I understand it's brand new. I just launched it this year. But already there are people who are sharing with each other, supporting each other, asking questions, answering, sharing ideas. And it is such a beautiful thing. But I'm not going to throw in the towel because it's not as large as I would like it to be yet. I have no idea where it will go. But the beauty of it now is that it is supporting those of us who are there. So if you're not there yet, feel free to join us. Again, it may help you if you are looking for a community or people that you may want to collaborate with or get ideas from or ask questions of. And you can get the link to that just by going to my website, yuchi.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get an email that gives you a link to join the group. But there are so many ways to really kind of start to feed into your inspirations, your goals, your dreams. There is nothing more beautiful than allowing yourself to kind of like bloom your business. I was thinking of this podcast and that popped in mind, business blooming. And I was like, what? But that's really what it is. Like, it takes time for us to nurture anything that we're going to do. Now, I want to tell you right now, don't be worried about where you're not. A lot of times we get stuck in what we're not doing, or, we don't have enough of this yet, or we don't have enough of that yet, or we don't know how to do this yet. But the key there is yet. And when we allow ourselves to step out of where we're not and just enjoy where we are in our inspiration, in our idea, even if we don't know what to do, enjoy that you have an idea. Enjoy that you have a goal. Let yourself feel good about that, because that is going to inspire you to build into it. That is going to allow you to consider what you can do to support you, rather than turning off the inspiration and focusing on what you don't have or where you're not yet. Okay, so let's breathe some life into these inspirations. Breathe some life into this feeling of creativity. And if you feel overwhelmed with ideas, which I can totally relate to, sometimes that's sometimes, all the time. I can't tell you how many notebooks, just random notes everywhere of ideas and things that I want to get to, that I want to create, that I want to put out. And at one point, it was so overwhelming for me because I had so many ideas that I couldn't quite focus on one. And so because I let myself focus on all of them simultaneously, I fell into overwhelm and just became stuck. Okay, here's the key. Pick one. Just pick one and stick with it. Pick one and allow yourself to plant that one seed. Start to nurture it before you go on to the next. Now, some of you, I'm sure, are very linear and very good at finishing something from start to beginning, but there are some of us who are a little less linear, and we do have a tendency to just, be all over the map. We can't, it's hard to wrangle it in. So if you are like that, again, it just comes down to discipline and really knowing that you can still jot down the other ideas, jot down the other inspirations, and they're not going anywhere. But if you just let yourself take a little bit of time to focus on just one, it will alleviate the overwhelm, and at least you start getting one of your balls rolling. So, yeah, that's it, really. I just wanted to remind you that, creation is a process, and building into our inspiration is a process, but a lot of times it simply comes down to acknowledging what it is we're inspired by, not ignoring those downloads of inspiration and creativity, and then, allowing ourselves to share and connect and ask for support. And be patient in the process, knowing that the universe is helping you in your process of co-creation. And sometimes when we do try to push too hard, we kind of muck things up. Sometimes it's best for us to just kind of fall back and go with the flow of the process itself. So if you are business blooming, you are thinking about starting your practice and all of these things, start there. Work on the foundation. Allow yourself to sink your teeth into what you really want to create. And again, honestly, for those of you who are starting a business or revamping a business, one of the most important things around this is community. So even start there. And again, if you decide to like Instagram or podcast or create videos, whatever you decide, be patient, but stay consistent. I told you this before, be firm and flexible. We have to be both. So I hope that you have fun with that. If you do have any thoughts, anything coming up for you around any of this, again, join us in the Seeker Circle. We continue the conversations after the show there. What was I going to tell you? Oh, and just a reminder again, you can check out Tiffany's podcast called Mind Your Chakras. You can check out Adrienne's tarot and astrology updates and forecasts by going to YouTube and looking up Adrienne Abeyta. Again, that's Abeyta. And if you want more links to them, join us in the Seeker Circle because their information is there as well. So I hope that you all have a beautiful day, that you are starting to feel good in the spring energy. I will see you all soon and more consistently. Have a beautiful day and remember to always journey in love.